Hi, welcome to DEFCON 3. I'm KT McFarland. The al-Qaeda breakaway group that seized significant territory in Syria and Iraq has formally declared the establishment of a new Islamic State. Now, they say that the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria has now calling on Muslims worldwide to swear allegiance to the group's new leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He's also changed his name to call himself a caliph. Does this latest move show growing confidence from these terrorist groups? Joining me for analysis is Kirk Lippold. He's the United States Navy retired commander who was the former USS Cole commander during the 2000 terrorist attack on his ship. And Sarhang Hamasaeed. He's the senior program officer for Middle East and Africa at the United States Institute for Peace. So thank you very much for joining us. Let me turn to you, Saeed, first, or Sarhang first. Let me ask you, do you think that what's happened over the weekend, it sounds sort of outrageous to us that this rebel commander, this al-Qaeda commander, has now declared himself a caliph, and he's now declared that he's in charge of this state, which is new country, which is Syria and Iraq. I mean, does this show that they're now confident of their place, and what is their objective in doing this?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely shows confidence and probably overconfidence. They now control a large part of Iraq and Syria, as you mentioned. They have moved on from several iterations from Al-Qaeda in Iraq to ISIS, or Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. And now they feel that they have large numbers of populations and towns under their control. They can move to the next stage of expanding their rule and territory. And if left alone, they will consolidate their presence and they will reach well beyond the areas that they control at the moment. And their ultimate goal is an Islamic caliphate in the form that was there in the centuries ago after the death of Prophet Muhammad. Okay. And they definitely wish to expand that.
Well, what is it? What is a caliphate? I mean, is that just another word for a kingdom or a country?
I mean, a caliph was the person in charge of the Islamic Empire or the Islamic State after the death of Prophet Muhammad. So this is the ultimate leader, or their president, or a king, equivalent of a king or emperor.
Okay, so his goal then is to have an Islamic State that includes the entire Middle East and potentially even beyond.
Yes.
That's what as crazy as that sounds to us, that's his goal.
That is his goal, and they feel that this is now they have a geography in the heart of the Islamic land, and they have the capability and comfort and the financing to go well beyond that. And the rest represents, and he has the head of this organization has always challenged Al-Qaeda as his former predecessors have done in the past, and now he sees himself above, and he sees his state and organization well beyond the capability of Al-Qaeda.
Okay, well, let me turn to you for some real military expertise. Commander Lippold, you know, this sounds sort of crazy. Is this really a possibility that this al-Qaeda offshoot, ISIS, is going to establish itself as an empire in the entire region? I mean, do they have the military capability to do that? As they are now, and do they have the capability even to go beyond this?
I think what you're seeing, KT, is an overreach right now. What you have is an individual who has taken those large swaths of Syria and Iraq. They've taken them with some of the tribal leaders, giving them the blessing for them in order to fight against the government of al-Maliki, who is Shia. The reality is, I think they're stretched too far, too thin. They don't have the ability at a tactical level. They may have it regionally. They don't have it operationally through the entire region to be able to hold those large swaths. They don't have a large enough force capability to keep the population under thumb and control them. If the tribal leaders turned against him, there is no way that he would be able to establish the caliph.
You know, you've spoken out in the past, Kirk, about you know, the threat that Iran poses to the entire region. Some Americans are saying that the United States should get re-involved in Iraq, that we should now get in on the side of the Maliki government, that Al-Qaeda, ISIS is such a great threat that we should somehow try to prop up the Iraqi government. But in effect, doesn't that help make Iran stronger, since the Iraqi government and Iran are closely allied, Kirk?
We're on the very much of a horns of a dilemma, KT, because when you really look at it, whether you agreed or disagreed with the disengagement by the United States at the end of 2011, we are where we are at today. The government that is currently in place in Iraq has created the conditions for Baghdadi to be able to get large swaths of Iraq right now. You're seeing the potential fall of that government. I think Iran, while they're engaging to a small degree in providing some military advice, they don't want to get engaged either because they don't want to bring the wrath of those people down across border and going into Iran. So I think that if we engage a Maliki and back him up, it does nothing to solve the core problems. And I would have to agree with the president. It has to be solved politically internal to Iraq. Al-Maliki has to go. I think we need a new government that is more inclusive put into place. But I don't think they're at a point where they feel threatened enough to do that. And until they reach that point, I think militarily, we are in the position we're in right now where we're doing exactly what we can do and should do, putting only advisors in there. The last thing the American people want to see is a reintroduction of boots on the ground unless there are clearly defined national security objectives that we're going to achieve in stabilizing not just Iraq, but the entire region, to include Kurdistan to the north, to include Syria over to the west. That whole region is going to have a comprehensive idea of what we're going to be engaging there. Otherwise, we're just going to be wasting